What's up YouTube? Welcome back, my name's Tony. So in today's video I've got 3 more tips on how using automation can help your mixes. In last week's video we went over some of the more basic uses for automation. So in today's video we've got 3 tips that are a little more complex. Vocal writing is using automation to even out the level of your singer's voice. The human voice naturally is very dynamic. And when somebody starts singing, especially when they're really putting emotion into what they're singing, their voice can go anywhere from a quiet whisper to a loud scream. So by automating the level of your vocals on a word-by-word basis, or even a syllable-by-syllable basis, you can really even out your vocal sound without having to completely squash it with compression. There are a few plugins out there that try to do the vocal writing for you. Waves has one called Vocal Writer that I've used in the past, but I've just always found it more effective, even if it is time-consuming, to do it manually. So I've already done a bunch of vocal automation on this. This is a mix I finished a little while ago. But here's how the vocal track sounds without any automation on it.
Back on track, she makes a fist, raise it high, but here's the twist. Where's the things that made her cry? I said.
And then with vocal automation on it.
Back on track, she makes a fist, raise it high, but here's the twist. Where's the things that made her cry? I said.
You can hear just how much more even it is. One thing I do often find I have to do with vocal automation is bring up just the very tail end of the phrases. Whether the singer's just running out of breath or just starting to think about the next line a little bit early, the tail end of their vocal phrases are often quite a bit quieter than the rest of it. So applying vocal automation is no different than any other kind of automation, but I'll show you anyways. Select your track. Hit V on your keyboard, that brings up your volume envelope. And then just critically use your ears.
Back on track.
So the word track is a little louder than everything else there. So we're going to highlight that. Press the knob on the left to give us our automation dots. Bring that down by, let's say 2.27 decibels.
Back on track.
Now the word track is around the same volume as the first 2 words, but we're losing the K sound on the end of track. So we'll solo out our vocal part here, zoom in on the word track, and just listen for where that K sound is, because we can't really see it on the waveform there. That seems to happen a little late, probably around this region here. So we're going to hold down Shift to draw our automation points. And boost that up. Let's go as far as we can, an extra 6 decibels.
Back on track, she makes a fist.
And there you go. Now that K sound's coming through a little bit more. So vocal automation is definitely a long and tedious process. I usually spend the first hour and a half of my mix just making sure those vocals are in line. But as tedious as it is, I find it to be one of the most important elements of mixing. So when mixing drums, we're always trying to make sure that they stay nice and level, very upfront without overtaking any other elements of the mix. But I often find by the time I've got them sounding the way I want them, and sitting right where I want them, I've lost just enough of their dynamic that they don't quite pop when they're supposed to pop. Like when a drummer adds a crash to signify the start of a new section, or a turnaround, or even just to accent something. That crash sometimes ends up getting a little bit buried. Or even if it doesn't get buried, sometimes it just doesn't quite have the effect that you want it to have. So the simple solution to that, add an extra decibel or 2 to any crash that isn't sticking through the mix the way you want it to. So we're heading over to a different mix for this example. Now for this song the drums are done on Superior Drummer, so they're all pretty evened out anyways. But I still found that the crashes didn't quite have the effect that I wanted them to without a little bit of automation. So here's how they sound with no automation.
There you go.
So you can hear that they're there, but that's about it. So here's how they sound with a bit of automation. So it adds a little bit of extra punch, a little bit of extra accent to the part. It's really simple to actually do that, but I'll show you how anyways. Just select your overhead track, press V on your keyboard to bring up your volume envelope, locate one of your crash cymbals, and we're going to zoom in and draw 3 automation points by holding down Shift and clicking. One just before the crash, one for the very beginning of the crash, and one for when your automation returns back to where it started. For boosting up these crashes, I like to have the automation return back to where it started before the next drum hits. In this case, the next drum is a kick drum, so we're going to draw another automation point right below there. I'm gonna grab the one that's at the beginning of our cymbal shot and boost that up. Oh, let's give it 2.28 decibels. There you go, nice and easy. So physically doing this automation trick is pretty easy, and it really helps to add the little bit of accent that you're looking for when your drummer hits that crash. You can automate your effects parameters as sort of a utility thing. For example, you've got your acoustic guitar playing along bright and jangly at the beginning of a track, but when your vocals come in, the high end of the acoustic guitar clashes with the high end of the vocals. In that situation, I would automate a high shelf on my acoustic guitar to take off a few decibels to open up a little bit of space for your vocal track to come in. But I find that I most frequently automate my FX parameters for creating interesting moving or sweeping effects. For this example, we're going to jump over to yet another song I've been working on. Starts off with an acoustic guitar, then the bass joins, then the drum joins. So the acoustic nice and jangly right off the top, but when the drums come in, the high end of that acoustic guitar seems to clash with the hi-hats. So we're going to automate the high shelf that I have already boosted on that EQ track to come down a few decibels. So what we're going to do is select the acoustic guitar track, and we're going to go to this little trim button here. That pulls up all the possible parameters that you can automate in Reaper. On the top we've got volume, pan, width, and all the basic track stuff. But after that we've got the parameters for any plugins that we have on that track. So the first one we have up on there is Re-EQ. We're going to go down to the gain for the high shelf. We'll zoom in to where the drums start. Holding Shift and click, we're going to do 2 automation points, one for the start of the change and one for the end of the change. Then we're going to grab the point for the end of our automation change, and we'll bring that down to 0. So here's how that sounds now. And there you go, opens up a whole lot more room for those cymbals to live. So we can use the same acoustic guitar track for my next example. Say I want to start this guitar track off with a filtered sound, but I want that filter to kind of sweep and fade out by the time the drums come in. So I've already added Wave's one knob filter onto this track. Here's how that sounds. So when that guitar starts to build up, I want that filter to start sweeping so that the high end of that track comes back in. So we're going to go back down to our trim button here. We're going to find the filter parameter, click on that, and over here where the build-up starts, we're going to make a point there, and make a point where we want it to finish off. And we're going to bring the point at the end of our fade back up to where there would be no filter left on the guitar. And here's how that sounds. So there you have it, guys. A few more tips on how you can use automation to help your mixes. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you like this video and would like to see more content like this one, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, throw me a like if you'd be so kind, and happy tracking. We'll see you next time.